What's going on? Welcome back to Off the Schneid. Today we're going to take a look at the Seattle Seahawks, talking about their draft needs heading into the 2022 NFL Draft. Obviously above me you can see the team needs that I have for the Seahawks and then their draft capital above that. If it wasn't for the Russell Wilson trade, which we'll obviously get to in a second, they would not have too much draft capital. So, this is an important draft for the Seahawks. It's a very important draft. Keep an eye out for my mock draft that's coming out in a few days here. I should have it released by Saturday, April 23rd. And I think Seahawks are going to want to pay attention. I think that I'm going to have them trading down to acquire more picks. I think that that's the way to go. I think that this is going to be a bad team. I think you got to commit to being a bad team. It is what it is, and try to get yourself a top 5 pick next year. They do have their own first round pick, finally, first time in a long time with the Jamal Adams trade there. I think you got to commit to being a bad team. Let these quarterbacks play, figure it out, and then probably draft a quarterback next year. You got to just sort out this roster and have it ready for a quarterback. Hand the keys over to a new quarterback, one of these top guys in next year's draft. There's no quarterback that's going to make a difference. So let's get right into the quarterback position. That's where we start, obviously. A lot of people are talking about, Baker Mayfield, Jimmy Garoppolo maybe, or draft a guy, Kenny Pickett, Desmond Ridder, whatever, Malik Willis, draft your future quarterback type of a thing. For me, why? Why do you do that? Which one of these quarterbacks are going to be able to come in and make any ounce of difference on this team? None is the correct answer to that question. And realistically, none of these quarterbacks in this year's draft are maybe one or two become that, but which ones? Are you that confident that who's going to succeed at the NFL level out of this year's draft class? Because I'm not. I am certainly not. I like Desmond Ridder the most. He's my favorite quarterback in the draft class, and he's the guy that's the most likely to come to this team. Do I do that? No. Maybe I do, but not at 9th overall. That's for sure. I do not draft Desmond Ridder 9th overall if I'm the Seattle Seahawks. I probably trade down and I still might get him. Let's look at this quarterback room though. Jacob Eason was from Washington University. He's a 4th round pick originally, but he was a recruit in the SEC. He started his college career at Georgia. So, he has that pedigree, moved to Washington. People were talking about Jacob Eason potentially being a 1st round quarterback. He slipped 4th round, waivers, ends up landing, in Washington again. I think that he's going to have an opportunity. I really do. I think all of these quarterbacks, Geno Smith just signed a 1-year contract earlier today. Obviously, Drew Lock comes over in the Russell Wilson trade. Have an open competition with these 3 guys. It's kind of the land of misfit backup quarterbacks in Seattle. So you just take those 3 guys, say, hey, let the best man win. One of you guys is going to start for us this year, or, we'll piece it together. This is going to be a bad team. It is what it is. I think Pete Carroll's time is past. It's time to let him go and move on. And whether that, opens up the door for maybe Shane Waldron or Clint Hurt to be the head coach of this team, or you just find your guy. I think you probably go find your own guy, but we'll see how it all shakes out. Either way, I don't draft a quarterback at 9th overall. I certainly do not. We'll see if they trade back, and I honestly feel like that's what I'm going to have them doing. And then maybe you take a quarterback, but you pick up a 2nd or 3rd, and plus something. You pick up some capital and you fill out this roster for your quarterback you select next year. Or maybe if it's later in the draft, you get a guy. We'll explore that when we do that. So that's how I feel about the quarterback position and this team as a whole. This is going to be one of the worst teams in the NFL, in my opinion. I think they're going to be terrible. I really do, even though, I love their wide receivers here. But let's work through it. Let's go to the running back position. Chris Carson's still here, but there's no guarantee that he's healthy enough to play football, honestly, ever. With that neck injury he's had, that's very, very dangerous. I don't think that there's any guarantee that he plays football again, and any kind of an injury, his career is probably over. I don't know if it's worth the risk. I really don't. I'm obviously not a doctor, but I know that it's very, very risky. So we'll see what happens there. They do have Rashad Penny, who obviously showed out last year. Finally, he was looking like a bust, first round pick in 2018. He does come back, and he's gonna be given every opportunity to be the bell cow 3-down back for this team. Maybe not quite 3-down, because they do have DJ Dallas and Travis Homer still on this team. They can definitely chip in the passing game and then in the return game as well. So maybe he's not the 3-down guy, but he's going to be given every opportunity to run the ball, as much as Pete Carroll loves to run the ball, which we all know how much that is. We'll see about the wild card and Chris Carson there. Let's move over to tight ends. Noah Fant comes in. This is a very good tight end room here. Noah Fant's a fantastic tight end in my opinion. That was a great grab. When you're trading a guy like Russell Wilson, you get a weapon in Noah Fant back. I think that this offense will be in a good place we'll talk about the offensive line in a second, but beyond that, I think this offense is in a good place for whatever quarterback, ends up coming in and being the quarterback of the future here. Will Disley still good enough to get the job done. Quality backup, that's for sure. And then Colby Parkinson was a 4th-round pick out of Stanford. He can definitely, if given the opportunity, I'm confident he can get the job done. He hasn't really gotten any kind of an opportunity yet, but we'll see how it shakes out for him. Let's move to this offensive line. It's in a horrible spot. Not that it's ever been very good, to be honest. That's been a big issue with this team for I don't know how long, ever, it seems. The entire career pretty much of Russell Wilson with the Seahawks, this offensive line has been in a bad spot. Stone Forsythe was a 6th-round pick and was an absolute steal, I thought. And maybe he is your left tackle, but I'm not ready to just accept it and say that he's going to be the franchise cornerstone left tackle. Maybe he will be, but I'm still bringing in guys to compete with him. That's for damn sure. Jake Curran, I don't even know who that is. Maybe he gets an opportunity. I do know who he is. Undrafted free agent, 24 years old, but I'm not giving him the keys. That's for sure. The best offensive lineman on this team is probably Damian Lewis, who was a 3rd-round pick a couple years ago. He's probably the best offensive lineman on this entire line right now as it sits. Austin Blythe and Gabe Jackson have been declining, but you're going to have to start them in a pinch, and realistically, they're better as of right now. As far as what I know, they're better than those 2 tackle spots. So obviously, I have left and right tackle as my 2 biggest needs, and it's really, really not close. So if the Seahawks do end up staying at 9, and one of those top offensive tackles are still there, I think they're going to have to pull the trigger on one of those guys. I don't know if any of those tackles are still there, so I'm not sure if they're going to be able to get those guys, but we'll see how it all shakes out here. I do feel like they do draft a local a lot. I feel like Abraham Lucas is going to end up being on this team, whether that's probably one of those 2 second-round picks there, or if they pick up another selection, they grab him there. But I feel like Abraham Lucas is going to be on this team. And maybe Stone Forsythe is the guy. We'll see how it shakes out. Either way, they're going to need starters and depth on this offensive line. Wide receivers are in a good spot, good enough that they're not really going to have to address it. At least I don't, because there's too many other needs on this team. DK Metcalf is one of my favorite wide receivers in the NFL. He really is. I'm a huge fan of DK Metcalf. Tyler Lockett is fantastic. He's a very, very, very underrated receiver in my opinion. And then I think the other guys can kind of just piece it together good enough for how bad this team is going to be and just accept it. It just is what it is, and just accept being a bad team. Embrace it, let it go, just commit to being a bad team for a year. Freddie Swain, Dwayne Eskridge, D. Eskridge, Penny Hart, Cade Johnson, all those guys can chip in and play the slot and returns, do all that kind of stuff, that I think you just roll with that. And to be honest, it's not that bad, especially considering how good Lockett and Metcalf are. Then realistically, those guys are kind of afterthoughts anyways, and they're going to probably try to run the ball as much as they can. Pete Carroll should love that, because that's what he likes to do. So there you go. That's your offense. It's not in a very good spot at all, because the offensive line is so horrible. It's gonna be so bad, and whoever ends up, that's why I don't draft a quarterback here. You really want some rookie to come in and have zero confidence because he's running for his life always. If you do want to draft a guy and have him sit for the entire season, I'm okay with that. If you really believe in a guy like Desmond Ridder, he's the only guy that's come in on a visit. So it's Desmond Ridder, or they're waiting till next year. And I'm okay with either, as long as you do not start Desmond Ridder, just because you don't want to kill him. You really don't want to kill him by him running for his life the entire time, because this offensive line is that horrible. It's going to be bad. So there you go. Let's move over to Clint Hurdle's defense. I think that, and they're finally going to fully change to a 3-4 defense. Pete Carroll's always been a bit of a 4-3 guy. I like what's gonna happen with this defense. I really think that he can turn this defense around, and they're finally going to be able to get after the quarterback, which has been lacking, in recent years. They've tried to piece it together with free agents and trades and stuff like that, but realistically, I think that switching and committing to a 3-4, and with Clint Hurt. Yeah, with Clint Hurt and, some of the pieces that they brought in with Shelby Harris, let's talk through it here. But I think that this defense is actually going to be the strength of this team, with the exception of cornerback. I think corner is absolutely in need, not as high of a priority as offensive line, but I think that this is a reasonable defense. So let's start with the defensive line there. Quentin Jefferson comes back to this team after having a career year, so that's a plus. Poona Ford can definitely be a quality nose tackle. I do like Poona Ford quite a bit. Shelby Harris, he's shown that he can absolutely have success in a similar system that he had in Denver, in his 2 full seasons, 2 of the 3 last full seasons he had with Denver, he had 6 sacks a season. That's very quality from an interior lineman. Very quality. Maybe LJ Collier is more comfortable in the 3-4 defense. Maybe that's all it is, because he's obviously struggled as a defensive end. He's a former first-round pick. It's basically now or never. But maybe he finds he's more comfortable in this system, and maybe he finds success this year. We'll see. Al Woods comes back. He still can get the job done. He absolutely can. He's 34 years old, but he can still get the job done. And Brian Moan, I hope I'm saying that right. I'm not sure, but he had a good year last year. Realistically, he got an opportunity. He ran with it. He played well. And, the defensive line is actually pretty set, to be honest. At least, for how good this team is or won't be, that's fine. I'm okay with that. And then moving it to the edge rushers, Darrell Taylor, he had a very good year last year. Again, it's changing. The system's changing, but he should be okay. I'm not really concerned with him. Alton Robinson is a former 5th-round pick. I liked him. Again, he was more of a defensive end, so we'll see how he fits in this defensive change. He should be okay. No reason to think he's going to struggle or anything like that. We'll see how it shakes out. But the guy I'm really excited as an edge rusher for this team is Yuchena Nuosu, who had a career year last year. Obviously he comes over, but it was from a similar system. He should play well. There's no reason to think that he can't be a quality player in this defensive structure. So that's fairly quality. They do need some help there, but again, there's just so many needs, so I couldn't really fit it on here, if I'm being honest with you. We'll talk about linebackers, because obviously Bobby Wagner's off this team. That was a bit weird how that kind of went down, and I feel like they kind of did him dirty a little bit, but it is what it is. The NFL's a business, so I'm not going to shed tears for Bobby Wagner as he heads to the Super Bowl contending team. Jordan Brooks is a guy that I really liked. I had to defend that pick. I did. If you go back, it's in, if you've been a fan of this channel and you watched a lot of this, I had to defend that pick. I loved it for the Seahawks. I really did. Why? Because of last year and this, what's going to happen this year. They were going to need him. I knew that they were going to need him eventually. He got to learn behind one of the best in the game for a full season, basically, in a part-time role. KJ Wright was still there, and obviously Bobby Wagner. Now he takes over as a leader on this defense, and he's going to be very good again. We'll see what happens with Cody Barton. I do think that he's probably going to be more of a depth complementary guy, which is why I have linebacker as a need here. But Tanner Muse, Ben Burke-Hervin, they could piece together their depth with Cody Barton there, as long as they get a guy that can come in and help out this defense. It might actually be a high priority draft pick with 2nd or 3rd round pick. We'll see, but I wouldn't be shocked if they went linebacker relatively early in the draft. Let's kick it back to the defensive backs. Obviously, like I said, corner is a massive need, but not as much as that offensive line, which is why I have it third there. Sidney Jones is a Washington guy, DBU. He played well last year. No reason to think he can't be a guy. He's struggled to stay healthy a little bit in his career, but as long as he's healthy and on the field, he should be a difference maker. Justin Coleman comes in as a free agent. He's getting up there in age. I think he's about 29 years old. And to be honest with you, Ugo Amadi is probably your starting nickel corner. He doubles as a free safety as well, and he does some things on special teams. But I think that he's probably your starting nickel corner in those nickel and dime packages. I think that he's the guy that comes in, and Justin Coleman's more of a depth guy, but they'll probably play on the field the same time a fair amount as well. And then you're hoping Trey Brown is a guy. Former fourth round pick last year. He wasn't a selection that I particularly liked, if I'm being honest, but if he can get the job done, he can get the job done. He's going to have to take that step. He's going to get every opportunity this year. And then Artie Burns is a former first round pick, or was he early second? Either way, former high round pick. He's been serviceable. He was a bit of a bust there for a bit, but he's been serviceable with the Chicago Bears for the past couple of years. So we'll see how he shakes out here. He's going to get opportunities, that's for sure. And he's still young enough that he could be a guy for this team for a few years. We'll see how that shakes out. Safeties are in a good spot. I'm not concerned there. It's relative strength of this team. Obviously, Jamal Adams is very, very good. And then Quandre Diggs can definitely get the job done. And Marcus Blair is a former second round pick. He can definitely help out as special teams, depth guy, that kind of a thing. So there you go. This team is going to be bad. It is what it is. They're going to probably be a bad team. They're going to move on from Pete Carroll. Hopefully they get a high draft pick next year. They draft a quarterback, and they fill out this roster this year with a bunch of capital, trade down, add more picks, get some bodies, figure out that offensive line. They have the weapons. And then there you go. Worry about 2023. That's when you need to be concerned about potentially being a team again, because honestly, this is not going to be a good team. It might be the worst team in the NFL. We will see. Even though they do have some pieces here and there, I think if you can finish, that's why I just don't draft a quarterback. Unless you're planning on sitting on Desmond Ridder for an entire season. Okay, sure. But other than that, don't draft a quarterback. Let these three guys figure it out. And, there you go. Worry about it in 2023. So there's your breakdown for the Seattle Seahawks heading into the 2022 NFL Draft. Let me know what you think in the comments, and we'll see you on the next video.